Hey, Paul. Trevor Lewis, my first question, to go from quarantine to that performance, I don't know if you guys are sneaking him on the ice the last few days
Yeah.
or not, but is that all the motivation of a PTO? Or?
Yeah, PTO, and I will give him credit for a real good day. Also, we just kind of beat up the rest of training camp for 2 days, so he didn't have to go through those first 2 days. But it's a example of and I think what I alluded to in the first two. Those veteran guys know their game, right? Like he knows when he hits the ice in a scrimmage what he's trying to accomplish to every shift. So it's really focused effort. I think I think his two line mates had a big piece of them looking well. Like all three of those guys out there had the same attitude, right? They didn't look at that scrimmage as a place to kind of warm their hands up or get back into it. They just went out and did their job as hard as they could. That's what they offer, right? That's what they're selling, is a better way to put it. So he fit right in. Like he looked like he'd been ready to roll for a while. Lots of energy. You know what? And I think there's a real chance he's quicker than he was last year, right? These guys constantly changing their training programs. He looks lean. He looks fast. And he played with kind of the two right guys in Thompson and Harkins to bring that out. So it's a good day for him.
And we'll go next to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Ken.
Thanks, Paul. Goaltending, the subject of the day. I mean, how do you balance the workhorse mentality of your number one guy with the need to get your backup some work during a compressed schedule?
I think it's going to be a lot easier to balance in this situation than in any other. When you're going to play as often as we are, your number one guy, you can get your backup goalie in without your number one guy feeling like he's coming out of a rhythm. So I think we go back 2 years ago, we had a spread out schedule at the start, and Connor, his complaint was he didn't feel like he could get into a rhythm. There almost weren't enough games for him. So I'm trying to fit LB into games, and I know that Connor felt like healthy and he wanted to play those games. And I didn't want LB sitting out too long. Anyway, I'm rambling. The point is, in a condensed schedule, your number one goalie can take the day off and totally feel like he's still into the rhythm the next time he gets back into the net. So I don't think that's going to be a challenge for us at all.
We'll go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks, Gregor. Thank you, Paul, for doing this. Sure. Just kind of curious, you talked about Trevor, and I know you alluded to this earlier in the week about Jansen Harkins, but how different does he look in this camp compared to the other camps that he's attended?
Well, in fairness to Jansen, so significantly, he just looks like on a slightly bigger, slightly stronger, slightly faster version. Jansen's always worked really, really hard. And when he first came in, as all young players, right, they just can't push as hard. So nothing's changed in terms of his work ethic. He's always worked really hard. Last year's training camp was the first time where you started to notice him in the drills with your NHL team, right? He'd start to just slightly stand out. And then, but this year, I mean, he's not a young man. Even though he hasn't completed a first NHL season, he looks like a full-grown, developed athlete. So he's driving through every single drill. And so that's 3 heavy days, right? Those last 2 days are an hour and a half each. Yesterday was an hour 40. And about 3 minutes after practice is over, he's back upright and he's recovered, right? So he's just a powerful young man now. And he is, he's legitimately, I don't have him as the 13th guy. I don't have a 13th forward right now. I don't know who that's going to be. So I haven't penciled him in as the extra guy out. He may well, slide into our lineup and just not come out. That'll be, by his play and by the lines play, how the group plays together. So he's quite a bit different. He's much further ahead with the coach for sure.
We'll go next to Sarah Lesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Paul. Just wondering, in a season like this, to go back to goaltending, does the play of your tandem overall overall, not just your starting goaltender, become that much more important with the way that the schedule is?
Yeah, I think what the challenge will be, well, first of all, there's no games to pick, if that makes sense. So when you look at an 82 game schedule, you're picking games. A lot of them are the back-to-backs, right? But you're also, I need my number one guy in here in these four, but maybe this would be a good place to get Lauren in, and you don't have that luxury, right? First of all, I mean, you just look at what Ottawa did, and the fact that we get Ottawa early when they're going to be just rolling with all the new players they've brought in. There isn't a dip in your schedule. There isn't much difference between all these teams. They're all really, really good. So you're not picking a game for LB. It'll be rhythm and the number of games that Connor's playing.
We'll go next to Brian Munns from TSN 1290. Go ahead, Munns.
Paul, just kind of continuing on that thought process with your goaltenders. You look early in the year, you've got Ottawa 3 times 5 days. Conceivably, could Connor Hellebuyck go like 3 straight games against the 3 straight opponent or same opponent? Pardon me.
I'm gonna say coming off a back-to-back, like that's 5 and 7. That stretch, it's 6 and 9. So I don't know what 3 I'll pick for Connor to run straight through, but you may be closer to me alternating there than at any other point in the season.
And the other side to the Trevor Lewis question, you've got Nate Thompson, and if it works out for Lewis, 2/3 of your fourth line that again are experienced players. Like, how much more confidence, and not a slight to anybody that's been in that role before, but you've got some proven players there to round out your forwards.
Makes all the difference in the world in that role. It is an incredibly difficult role for a young player to play in. If you're playing in the National Hockey League, you were phenomenal when you were an amateur, right? You were the number one centerman, the number one defenseman, and then you go and you pop up into the NHL, and now you're a fourth line guy. Never in your life have you sat the bench for 6 straight minutes and then had to go out and play as fast as you've ever played in your entire life. It's a difficult job. The men that survive there, and the guys that play that fourth line role and spend a lot of time, spend a lot of years in the league, are special at it, right? Because there is that idea that you'd always, you bring in new kids, there's a lot of turnover in your fourth line. And when you find men that have a career on the fourth line, they're good at it. And I think when you look back at, we've had some, a guy like Matt Hendricks. The other thing, what Matty did is he brought a tremendous amount of respect to the job. And Nate Thompson has that. Trevor Lewis has that, Stanley Cup champion, and Trevor, and they have that respect from the players.
And we'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks for this, Paul. Connor Hellebuyck mentioned earlier that he wanted to play upwards of 45 games, regular season games this year. So when you look at that projection, how much of his workload is up to him in the decision process, and where's your trust level with a guy who obviously has earned a lot with this club?
Right. So I'm surprised he dropped it to 45, to be honest with you. But that's a really good question, and it's an evolving. So that has changed. That relationship. So Connor and I started talking about those games. Now Wade Flaherty does all of it, right? But it's kind of Connor and I will discuss when he wants to play and I won't play, and we have a conversation, right? But he understands now. We're developing that. And he's changing as a goaltender. He's coming into his prime. He's going to be big and strong for 6, 7, 8 more years, 9 more years. If you asked him, 15 years. There's the one that you watch for is the one the goalie doesn't see, right? He's in the net, and he's played a lot of hockey, and he feels great, and it's just not happening so he doesn't understand when you're pulling him for the next game, right? I feel good, and you're just a little bit off. So that one, the rest of them are we when we lay it out fairly far in advance, kind of what we're thinking with the understanding that it can change all the time. But, you know, you'll know a week or two in advance a 60 to 70% chance of what we're doing, if that makes sense. But he's also never 100% sure if he's playing the next light. Like Flats will go to him and say, yeah, you're going. And 9 times out of 10, Connor expected to, right? Yeah, that's what I thought would happen. So they just kind of move along with that. And that relationship I've enjoyed. I enjoy having those conversations with Connor because they make me smile. Because the first thing out of his mouth is, "I'm ready, man. I can play. No, I feel good. You got to put me in." And it just, you know, 9 straight games in a row of 100 shots a night. I'm right there. I love my game. I love where I'm at. So I enjoy those conversations with him. He's a gamer, man. He's competitive.
And we'll go back to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Ken.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, with no exhibition games, how many more scrimmages should we expect to see before the opener in the next week?
Yeah, it will all, Ken, based on health, right? So when you look at the structure of our camp, so I had Nelson Ogier as a forward today. So if you're going to scrimmage like that, you have to have 6 lines, right? 3 on each team, or you're going to burn people right out. You're going to create more injuries. So we have Noj playing forward. So you can expect some guys that will, some of these forwards that were out today, you can expect them back pretty darn soon. But you also know that there's going to be some forwards that were playing today that'll be coming out of the lineup. That's inevitable. The more forwards we have, the more we'll scrimmage in practice. If we can get into next week and I can come up with 18 forwards, then we'll scrimmage again like we did today. If not, we'll scrimmage in practice with a 5-line rotation. It would take me longer to explain it than that would make sense. So we're going to scrimmage in practice as much as we can, but it'll be based on the health of our forwards.
And I'll go back to Sarah Orlesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Paul, sticking with this scrimmage, what is it that you were looking to get out of today? What were you wanting to see or evaluate from your group?
I wanted to get them back into, the full contact speed of hockey, right? So these guys haven't been scrimmaging. We've had pretty darn good contact for 2 days, but just that game mentality. The systems haven't been on the front burner here in the first 2 days. Some of our tracking, some of how we go from one end of the ice to the other, shift length, some things like that we were looking at. I like the blue squad. They had a bunch of chances to score. I like some things that we saw out there. The things that you wouldn't like, I'm not worried about right now. They're not on my radar.
And we'll go back to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Paul, the way the Winnipeg Jets are built, and this is a Connor Hellebuyck question. Do you expect? Does this team expect to lean on their goaltender maybe more than, I don't want to say the average club, but just given the makeup of this team, are you expecting to lean on your goaltender more than maybe the average team would?
100%. But we're going to do everything in our power to give him a chance to be the difference. So we are top end heavy and we are goaltender heavy, right? We've got some really skilled forwards that didn't get into the National Hockey League defending. They got into the National Hockey League scoring. And the cost of that was the changeover that we've had under our defense, but we know that we've got really competitive defensemen back there. Like when you think of all of the injuries and everything that we went through, and I know what the analytics, believe me, I know what the analytics say in terms of chances against. We finished 10th in goals against. So that's almost, I think for me, you got to be top 5 to be elite. You got to be top 10 to be good. So there's a trade-off there. We asked Connor Hellebuyck to be really, really good to give us a chance to win games, and he did that, right? I think we added 2 NHL center icemen. That's just like adding 2 NHL defensemen, and we added a defenseman. So I think we are going to be far better in terms of what we ask of Connor Hellebuyck, but our expectation is that he will be a difference maker for us, and we're going to need him to be.
And the closer, Ken Weeb from Sportsnet, once again.
Well,
Left-hander.
just wondering, what's the status of Marko Dano with him clearing waivers yesterday? Do we expect to see him in camp, and also when would you expect the World Junior players to be arriving back in Winnipeg?
You're always asking the difficult questions, and some of that stuff I don't know the answer to because they're in different circumstances, right? So we'll make a decision on Cole as to, he's been locked up in a bubble for an awfully long time, hasn't had a Christmas. So he may get a little bit of time to see, to go home. Billy, a little different situation because he's over here now. So I don't have a date for you on either of those guys.